Hi, this is Kit. This video is for year one volunteers. So all the rest of you guys can skip to the next video. Year one volunteers, stay tuned. This video is going to be going through the schedule for the year, retreats, interviews, and required documents. So I don't think it's going to take very long to review all this, but I wanted to share my screen. There we go. Okay, so we looked at this calendar in a previous video just as a general overview. When looking at this overall calendar, you know, all of these little bolded days, they're going to be lessons that you teach for the most part. I mean, I guess after the 13th. And the lesson schedule can be found in the tab called Year One Lessons. So this is going to have your calendar of lessons. So it'll tell you the date on one side and the lesson that you'll be teaching on the other. So this will help get you through the entirety of the year, following along. So again, we're all matching schedules. I wanted to point out on the calendar, in our year one class, the students will be expected to attend with a parent one retreat. This is the reconciliation retreat, and the retreat actually happens in Lent. So let me go back to the main calendar view. At this point, I'm looking at, I think that I've reserved the spaces I need, so I'll be able to solidify this date in the calendar, but it's going to be February 24th for 2024. If you're looking at this in the future, you'll want to check on the calendar for that particular year, but for the 2023-2024 year, our reconciliation retreat will be on the 24th. Now, the reconciliation retreat is something I'd like volunteers to attend, but it is not very heavy duty as far as volunteer lift. Of all the retreats that I run, which is 3 sacramental retreats, this is the chillest, as the kids would say. It's a very basic retreat, but it's the second Saturday of Lent. That's kind of when I'm shooting to have this retreat from here on out in the Lenten season. So the kids, as you know, they'll be doing their reconciliation lessons in the fall, and then their retreat will occur in the early spring. So part of the reason I do that is that people can continue to go through classes and things like that. Don't think that they're just done. Now, I'm going to give you a really quick preview of the retreat itself. Hi, Bibby. All right. So this might change just a smidge. This was my retreat outline from last year, and that's where I always begin planning my retreats. So you can see the goals for the reconciliation retreat are to refresh student and parent in understanding of the sacrament of reconciliation. It's to refresh student and parent knowledge of the concepts of sin, of confession norms of behavior, examination of conscience, and the divine mercy is something else that we tackle in this retreat. And then, of course, a goal is that for kids who have been baptized, they will receive their first reconciliation with the support of their family there. So overall, you can see the schedule is a volunteer arrival at 7:45. And then we expect students to start arriving at 8, and we expect to be done with everything by 10:30. And frankly, we're usually done before that. Children's reconciliations do not take that long, as you may or may not recall. A lot of this retreat is video content based, so I do a little bit of a story in the beginning, and then we use some really great video content, and you can see some of the links that I used last year. I'm actually going to be changing up a little bit of the videos, I think, in a positive way, but the videos are fairly short. They're designed to make the content more accessible for children. And I can tell you for this particular retreat, it might be nice for you to be there as a volunteer because you'll be able to see the kids that you're sing in the classroom and welcome them. And that's going to help provide a little bit of reassurance to them. Children get very nervous about their first reconciliation. They get very nervous about this sacrament and taking it for the first time. And so they usually arrive, at the best, nervous, excited. At the worst, I've had kids show up crying. And so my job at the beginning of the retreat is to help relax them. And I didn't have anyone in the last 2 years that I've done this retreat. I've never had a kiddo not have a good experience. I end with a cookie at the end. So after they get their reconciliation done, they come to do a checkout with me and they receive a cookie as like a benefit for, yay, you finished your first reconciliation. So that will be coming up, toward the end of February. So try to hold that day on your calendar. Going back to what we're looking at. Yeah, February 24th is when that retreat is going to be this year. Let's see. One more thing for you to be aware of when you go over to this calendar, your lineup of what we're going to be doing and when. You'll see, we go through reconciliation, we go through salvation history, and then we actually have 2 evenings. They're flex nights for weather cancellations for one, but their primary purpose is actually to do student teacher interviews. And what that means is for one of those nights or both of those nights, we're going to have the kiddos, doing a generalized lesson, and then you'll be calling the children out one by one to do an interview with them. Let me show you what we used last year. I think we'll probably use a lot of these same questions, if not exactly these questions. So you're going to be doing just a one-on-one interview with a kiddo, asking them to demonstrate the sign of the cross for foundational knowledge, asking them to recite the Our Father, and then asking them if they know who the Trinity is. And then we're going to be asking, specific to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, for the kiddos to explain what the Sacrament of Reconciliation is and does in their own words. Ask the kiddos to explain in their own words what sin is, and then explain the process of confession in their own words. So there's a lot of flexibility there. But you'll be, marking on this piece of paper, if the kiddos could do it, if they could partially do it, or if they could not do it. And then what goes back actually to parents is an email saying kind of where their kid, how their kid did and what they could do to support the child at home. So it's not punitive. The process isn't like if you fail, did not know anything, you don't get to pass. This is actually meant to really boost children's confidence. And we do a larger family interview in year 2. But for year 1, we just do this. The kiddos sit down with a teacher, with a couple of members of their teacher team, and they go through this. And honestly, I think the interviews took like 5 to 7 minutes each last year. So they go by pretty fast. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention, let me stop sharing my screen. For year 1, we are bringing kids into, of course, the sacramental preparation program. And something that, children's parents, when they sign them up, they will be enrolling them either in the regular year 1 class or in something called RCIC. Essentially, it doesn't matter if the kiddo is RCIC or regular year 1, they're going to go through the same lessons. So the one thing you need to be aware of is if a kiddo has RCIC by their name, when you go to fill in their attendance sheet, it means that they are not yet baptized. RCIC stands for Rite of Christian Initiation for Children. That's the fancy liturgical churchy name for the process that children who have already reached the age 7 and have not yet been baptized, the process that those kiddos go through to be baptized in the church. Age 7 is considered in canon law to be the age of reason. Now, there's some wiggle room with this, and I consult with Father Andrew at church if we have any questions about age of reason kind of stuff or any special circumstances. But in general, if you see a kiddo is in the RCIC program, they are not yet baptized. So that's good to know in class, because if you're, telling people about or telling the kiddos to remember their baptism or who's been baptized. When you see that you have some RCIC kids in your class, you'll know that they have not yet been baptized. The kiddos that are baptized, in order to kind of proceed through our program, they need to provide us with a copy of their baptism certificate, either a hard copy or a photograph or a scan of a copy of their baptism certificate. So that's a required document that we need to verify that a child has been baptized. And when we come to our reconciliation retreat in February, the RCIC children are directed to not go to that, because technically RCIC kids can't receive First Communion if they have not yet been baptized. Baptism's that initial entrance sacrament that comes before all of the other sacraments. So that's something for you to be aware of. I think that is all I wanted to cover with you today. I hope that this prepares you for a couple of the specific things that are coming up in the year one calendar as you approach volunteering. Cheers.